Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacalyn. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacalyn at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, everybody. Excuse me for 1 minute. Just want to silence my phone. There we go. Okay, one more time. Good afternoon, everyone. It's actually afternoon for most of us. I'm in Houston, and it's almost 12:30, and we're a little late this morning, but that's okay. So good morning. I'm still drinking my tea. I'm going to put that down, and we will proceed with our very special holiday pork tenderloin that's going to be braised and then cooked with fresh dill, shallots, carrots, and parsnips. And then we'll add some sides. Cheers. I am Ricki Mckenna, and this is Ricki's Kitchen. And welcome. And I hope that everyone enjoyed their Christmas and is all set for a very healthy and prosperous new year. And here I am. Yes, food is more than what we eat. Absolutely. And if you're calling, or please text and proceed your text with Ricki's Kitchen or USA Global TV, whichever one works for you, or the United Kitchens. That'll work, so I know from whence the text is coming. I am a certified nutritionist for the last almost 3 years. I have worked with everyone from kindergarten children to executives in corporations, including DuPont and a number of other corporations. I feel as though food is the key to our health, and I've always felt that way. And the more I read, the more I learn, the more I educate myself as a nutritionist and just as a chef. I know that food is the key. So this afternoon, we're going to cook up specials. One of them is our pork tenderloin. I've got a tenderloin that's been marinating. And for the marinade, I used a combination of Dijon mustard, fresh red onions, fresh garlic, actually about 4 or 5 cloves of garlic, and some olive oil and a touch of about a tablespoon of red wine vinegar. So we're going to take our tenderloin, which is a little over a pound, and it's been marinating overnight, and I'm going to put it in a pan with nothing but the marinade that is on it, and we're going to sear it, so that it will cut down on the cooking time, because we're going to bake it, we're going to roast it in the oven. Excuse me 1 second, I think my camera needs a little adjusting. There we go. And so while we're letting that heat up, because mine is an electric range, and it depends on what kind of range you have, how much time it takes to do things. So in the meantime, what I'm going to do is chop up the sides. First, we'll do the shallot, and I'm just going to slice it, because we're going to scatter it all around the tenderloin, and with the other vegetables that we're going to put in the pan as well. And oh my goodness, this is strong. And I really haven't found anything that protects your eyes from a really strong onion or shallot, other than doing it under cold water, which is hard to do on top of this wooden chopping block. Now, I'm going to take my baking pan, and I prefer glass or Corningware. And so I'm going to put just a wee bit of olive oil in the bottom, and make sure that, here we go. I have to listen for the tenderloin so that we don't actually cook it in the pan. It's on high. And you want to just sear it, hot sear it, so that it holds the juices in, and it will cook a little faster once it's put into the oven. It'll roast a little faster. So we're just going to let that sear for a minute and hot. That's why I didn't put anything in the pan. We want it dry. I'm going to save my shallot to put in a few minutes. I'm going to cut up my potato. I have a Yukon Gold potato, which is a very light, easy to use potato. And all I've done was scrub the peel. I know you can hear that thing. Let's see what we're doing here. There we go. It's not sticking to the pan, but we have to make sure that it doesn't. But we want it to sear and seal. That's sear and seal in the juices. Okay. So I'm cutting my potato up pretty quickly into bite-sized pieces. And we'll scatter that around the baking dish, leaving room in the middle for the tenderloin. And I found that this is one of the best meals to really fill people up and make them happy. So I'm also going to cut up my carrots into a little bit of bite-sized pieces, and I like to cut my carrots on an angle. It's prettier than just rounds. Carefully avoiding my fingers. And there we go. Now, parsnips. They look almost like a carrot. They're a little bit different vegetable, and they have a different texture. So I'm going to carefully cut up my parsnip as well. And stop for a second so I can flip my tenderloin. There we go. Oh, does that smell good? I'm going to cut the parsnip up a little bit more because it's pretty large up in the top. So I want them into bite-sized pieces. And again, I'm going to cut that on an angle. Hope everybody can see what I'm doing, and I'm scattering all of them around. Because normally if I don't braise or seal in with the searing the meat, then it will take up to about 45 minutes for it to roast on 350. Not quite sure what that equates to in the UK. But it's about a medium-high heat. There we go. We've got our parsnip, potatoes, and carrots all ready. Dish. Now, the only other thing that I'm going to cut up in a moment. Perfect. I just want to show you. It looks like the pan is a little bit brown, which it is, but so is the meat. And it's begun to seal so that we can just take this now and put it right in the middle. Making sure I turn off the burner. And now I'm going to scatter my beautiful shallot over the meat. Now, I did use for the marinade, I did use red onion, but there's nothing that says you can't combine the flavors. The shallot's a little more delicate, but it's the same family, and onions are absolutely wonderful for most of us. I would say 99% of us. I do have a couple of people who I know who are actually allergic to onions, and I have found a couple of things that can replace onions and garlic in recipes. I've also got some fresh dill, which I am going to take and chop up a little bit fine. Now, when you've got dill, you've got trees. My kids used to love this. Take the little ones off the big stem before you start cutting so that it's easier to get the fine pieces of dill. And they do have a delicious flavor that is very distinct. Often I use this with pork, with chicken, and with fish. And a lot of times you'll find people putting chopped up dill into sour cream for a dip or into yogurt. And so I'm just going to take this and give it some fine chop, and then we'll scatter it on top. And one other thing that we're going to put in there that I find almost indispensable when cooking, when roasting a piece of meat like this, is a little red wine and some salt. I'll just scatter some salt throughout here, because our next ingredient is going to be first the dill, which is a wee bit delicate. Actually, what I'm going to do is take some olive oil and give it a little sprinkle. Get some of the vegetables with a little bit of the olive oil on it. And then I'm going to scatter my dill on top, basically on top of the meat. And I'm using the back of my knife to scrape on a wooden top. Here we go. And then I'm going to take some sun-dried tomatoes. So we'll have a variety of flavors going here with our pork tenderloin. Just going to chop it up a little bit more. And sun-dried tomatoes add a wonderful element to things. Actually, if you chop them up and use them with something like plain Greek yogurt, as well as the dill, you'll have an interesting dip. Mix them into a dip. I haven't tried them in some of my muffins. I do make some muffins that are anti-inflammatory, but tomatoes traditionally are not anti-inflammatory. They're actually part of the nightshade family, which I'll give you a little more information on in a few minutes. So now I've got my sun-dried tomatoes, and they're going to get scattered around with the parsnips and the carrots and the potato. Not wanting to leave any of that out. And now for the final touch, we have some red wine. I've got about half a cup, but I'm not going to use it all. I'm just going to sprinkle it around just so there's liquid in the bottom, because you will form gravy from the vegetables and the meat, and just a spritz on top. All right, I used maybe half of that, so about a quarter of a cup of red wine. And my oven is at 350. We're going to put that right in there, uncovered. All right, so, Dr. Jacalyn, are you there? I know you're hiding, because you got to work out this morning and I didn't, but that's okay. So I'm going to take the rest of my dill and save it for something else. And by the way, when you buy the fresh herbs in little packets, my supermarket has it in little packets like this. Please make sure that they look clean and they look wonderfully fresh, but please make sure that you also wash them before you use them. Just a quick rinse in tepid warm water or even cool water. Just a little caution there, because at this point, with everything going on in the world, it certainly does pay to wash everything when you bring it home. What I've got here are nice little French green beans, and we're going to take the green beans. And what I do with green beans, just as we do have some questions. Oh, good. Can I answer the questions? What nutritional value parsnips have for us? They're very similar to carrots. There's not as high a content of vitamin A, and I'd really have to actually look it up to see what else is in there that's really good for us. But like any other vegetable, it's a root vegetable, so you're getting the minerals and things from the earth. So most of our root vegetables have the minerals as well as vitamins. I'll have to look that one up. Using other type of oil or just olive oil. I like grapeseed oil, and I often use avocado oil. in such things as muffins. I use the grapeseed and the avocado oil in using baking because it doesn't have the same flavors as the olive oil. Olive oil usually has, and I have a friend who's convinced that the really good olive oil should have a bitter back taste at the back of your mouth. And frankly, I don't want that in my muffins. So if your muffin recipe calls or your baking recipe calls for olive oil, unless it's something that's savory, where you're using sun-dried tomatoes or pepperoni or something like that, I would use either grapeseed oil or avocado oil because the flavors there are far less discernible. They're much more a wonderful oil with high flash points, by the way, especially the avocado oil for cooking and sauteing. I hope that helps. White wine instead of red. If you have a problem with red wine, absolutely use the white wine. What happens is the wine gives it a flavor and an aroma, and the alcohol burns out when you're cooking something. And excuse me while I put the timer on, because I think we should do this for about, if you're cooking pork, definitely anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. And by searing it and locking in the juices, it has begun to cook. So it will help it. And I can roast it for a little bit less time. But when you're doing pork, please make sure that it's done through. I believe the temperature should be around 185 if you're using a thermometer. Yes, probably. I prefer organic meats or organically farm-raised animal meats if I'm going to use them. And I find that there's a very particular difference in flavors from the ordinary meats that are in packages to the fresher ones. I think they're fresher when you find them at the butcher. I hope that helps. Okay. Any more questions? I'm here. You're welcome. What I've got is about a quarter pound or a big handful of green beans to go with. Actually, since there's two of us consuming this pork roast, what I'm going to do is about enough green beans for the two of us. But what I've done, I bought a large package of these absolutely beautiful organic beans, and they were already washed and trimmed, which is great because, taking the little ends off of everything is time consuming. What I recommend you do if you're not going to use all of that up, I bought a 3-pound bag. So what I have here is about half a pound. And I take them and I take the whole bag, I wash it again just to make sure in a strainer or a colander. And then I take a steamer and I put cool water and the steamer in a pot big enough to hold all of the green beans. And here's why. Even if you like them crisp, they are still crisp. They're a little bit softer. Oh, this one's not cooperating. It's crunchy. That's what you want. If you like your green beans al dente, what I do is take them raw, washed and trimmed, put them in the steamer with the cool water, put a top on them, but leave the top kind of open just a little bit. And I put them on high. Once they start to boil and the steam starts to come out of that pot, if you lift the top off, they're done. Because what you're doing is pre-cooking so that they don't turn bad. And then I find if I use good old white paper towels to line whatever it is that I'm going to put them in the refrigerator, I take them out and I lay them out first. Get them as dry as you can before you put them in the refrigerator so that they'll last for several days in the refrigerator pre-cooked, and then you can do anything you like with them. For example, today we're going to saute them slightly, but first I'm going to take some almonds and chop them up and do kind of a traditional green bean almond type of dish. But again, other than if you leave them in a bag, the plastic bags that they come in from the stores, they will turn very nasty in a few days. So my suggestion is to take them out and pre-cook them like this, and then you can even freeze them at this point. And they will retain at least a little bit of their crispiness if you like them al dente. And actually for Christmas dinner, we were at a friend's house, and most of us are used to asparagus that are crunchy, still al dente. They're only cooked usually standing up straight in a pot of water. But this one, they were soggy, but they did taste good because they had a great hollandaise sauce and some mushrooms to go with them. But I really do prefer my vegetables crispy. And so I'm going to take these, and all they've been is washed and pre-steamed. And I'm going to take my pan. Now I can use olive oil or butter. And since I've used olive oil with the tenderloin, I'm going to use just about, that's a little over a teaspoon, maybe 2 teaspoons of olive oil. And I'm going to take a couple of wooden spoons because I'm going to toss them in the olive oil so that they'll get coated. Oop, that's mine. And just kind of run them around the pan a little bit. There's nothing else in the pan except the olive oil, but I want them coated with the olive oil. And then I'm going to give you a couple of alternatives on how to prepare them. First of all, let's take a little salt, and this is rough kosher salt. I'm just going to sprinkle it around. And I'm going to take some of that dill weed. No, actually I'm not. I'm going to take some thyme. Good. Here we go. Since this is my intuitive cooking, I'm going to use thyme sprinkled on with the salt and the green beans, just a little bit. Whoopsie, oh boy. Well, we've got a bunch. So I'm going to toss it around. Smells good. And make sure the green beans are thoroughly coated. Now, since I have my roast in the oven, and since we have typical Houston Christmas weather, it's about 75 degrees outside, I'm going to use this on the stovetop rather than heat up another oven and really heat up the house. So I've got my coated green beans tossed in the olive oil with the thyme and salt. That's all they are. Yep. More questions. Oh, goody. Okay. Oh, these are usually found. You can probably find it online. Just look for stainless steel olive oil containers. I'm not even sure where I got this one. It may have been someplace like Napa, Sonoma, Williams Sonoma, or the kitchen store, several other kitchen places. Just look for it online. It's great. It really is, because you fill it, of course, on top, and it has a little air hole so it will pour. And just be careful not to overfill, because it's hard to see when you fill it. And sometimes I use a funnel to fill it instead of dressing the whole thing in olive oil. And you'll excuse me for just a second, but I'm going to put some water in here. I don't very often use nonstick pans. And the reason is I like stainless steel, either stainless steel or copper. I like the way it performs, and I like to use my wooden tools and whatever tool that I want. And you're kind of limited to using certain kinds of tools with the nonstick pans. And something like this, where you can see how dark this is. This is just a lesson in cleanup. That's from the pork tender. So what I'm going to do, you can almost always clean a pan from things like that, just leaving some warm water in it for quite a while. If it's really crusted on and it's burnt onto the pan and you feel as though you need to use something else, then I use either Barkeeper's cleanser or you can use steel wool. And that's the advantage just to stainless steel. You can always clean it up. Question about olive oil. How long will olive oil last in something like that? Not very long because I use it very often. But I keep my olive oil in the pantry because I use it almost daily. If you don't, you can put it in the refrigerator. It will congeal, but it will soften and re-liquefy in just a few minutes. And usually olive oil, I would say not more than, once you've opened it, 3 months, 2 to 3 months. If you keep it refrigerated, it will be fine. But in a pantry, make sure your pantry is not too hot because the heat will help dissipate it. It's like the nuts. My almonds and walnuts, pecans, what else do I have? Cashews. I keep all of my nuts in the refrigerator, whether they're raw or roasted. And the reason is this: they have oils, and the oils in the nuts will go bad within maybe 30 days. So other than not taking a chance on that, look at the date on the package of the whatever, however you buy the nuts. Look at the date. That's a shelf date. That doesn't necessarily mean that once you bring it home and keep it for another month without opening it, that they're going to be fresh. So make sure that you look at the shelf date, and then I put all my nuts into glass containers as much as I can, as well as everything else. I hope that helps. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I've got, these are salted. So I'm going to take the nuts, and actually, I'm going to wet my paper towel just a little. Kind of dry my hands on it. And I'm going to just break up those nuts just a little bit. If you have a hammer or a kitchen, where is that? A tenderizer. They come in several different forms. This one has some spikes, small spikes on one side and larger spikes on another side. I don't want the spikes. I just want the flat side this time to break up the almonds. And I've covered them with the paper towel, so hopefully they won't go flying all over the kitchen. My cat has now fled the room because she's hearing the noise. Are there any other questions? There we go. Now we've got about a little over about a third of a cup of chopped up almonds. And what I'm going to do is actually take my green beans out of the pan, leaving the oil and all the goodies that are in there, and put my almonds in and start them toasting. And I'm going to toast them. Be very careful when you're toasting nuts because they're fine and dandy 1 minute, and then a couple of seconds later, they're done. Especially something like pine nuts. They often get browned in a large hurry, very, very quickly. So this is one of our sides, and we're going to do the almonds first. There's a little bit of oil in the pan, besides the oil that the nuts naturally have, so that's fine. I'm just going to spread them out with that little bit of oil in there, and the little bit of salt that I put in, and thyme. And let them start to I'm going to start them on high. I could be living dangerously doing that, but I'm going to start them on high and make sure that my green beans are well tossed by tasting them. Oh, yeah. So now, here's a point about the olive oil. I can taste the olive oil because it is a fairly strong tasting oil. If I were to use avocado oil, like so, you wouldn't have that same taste, but it does have the olive oil taste, and I want that particularly because it's going to harmonize with the tenderloin. And keeping an eye on my toasty nuts. And again, this is a non-stick, not a non-stick pan. It's actually my favorite little 8-inch frying pan. So we're going to put those aside for a moment. And here's our next side, which I prepared a few days ago. And it is a more traditional cranberry sauce, because cranberries and pork and the green beans will make an absolutely delicious combination on a plate. Now, when I do make the sauce, I'm not going to do it today, so I've got it already prepared so we can put everything together. I just take a large pot, maybe a 3-quart to 3-quart pot, and I put about an inch at most, maybe 3/4 of an inch of water in the bottom. Wash my cranberries, making sure that I get all the leaves and sticks and whatever's in there, and the mushy ones, take them out. And then I put the cranberries in, and I put in a cinnamon stick. No sugar, not yet, because you want to put in the sugar afterwards, and that's what we're going to do now. But I've let it sit with the cinnamon stick in it. I'm going to just mix that cinnamon stick around and mix the cranberry sauce around with it. And I'm living dangerously because I put it in a 2-cup glass container. Okay. It's hard to resist licking this. And I've got another tablespoon of sugar. So I'm going to carefully mix in the tablespoon of sugar. Actually, I'm going to do it with the cinnamon stick. I'm going to put it on top a little at a time and mix it in. And this way, the sugar will dissolve because of the liquid. If I wanted to, I could do this when this cranberry sauce was hot. I did put in, almost 2 tablespoons of sugar. Usually if I do something, in, I believe it was 12 ounces of cranberries that I put in to cook. And you can see how it's cooked down, although I did use some of it before. And the 12 ounces of cranberries usually call for a cup of sugar. And I find that that's way too sweet. So I use about a half a cup. And I had put in probably 3/4, not quite, no, 2/3 of a cup. Not quite half a cup. Oh dear. What did I say about the nuts? We may have to start over. Oh, Julia Childs went through this too, so I guess I can. Anyway, good thing I didn't put the nuts back in the outside refrigerator. All right, we have a very hot stove and a very hot pan. So I will chop up another bunch of nuts, not put the pan back on there yet. Anyway, we've got our cranberry sauce. It's just about ready. We're going to leave that right where it is and mix it in a little bit more so the sugar gets all through it. And actually, you can serve it like that with the cinnamon stick in it, and one lucky person may get that. I'm going to take another 1/4 cup of the nuts, And we'll go through the process again with a clean towel. Because sometimes things happen. Okay. That's my top. Can you see that this would pair beautifully with either white wine, because the pork can be eaten with white wine or red wine. And actually, according to my son, who is an oenophile and in the wine business for many years, he says you can drink whatever wine you prefer with whatever foods you prefer. Of course, he is really good at pairing things. And I would pair something like a Pinot Noir or even a red Zinfandel with pork. I find that red Zinfandel is a lovely light white red wine and works well with pork and with fish and with lamb. Just a little more. Ta-da! Okay, we'll let that go. And I'm going to put a little bit more oil in here again. But not much, just to lubricate it a teeny bit. Okay. And we'll try this one more time. All right. And mix it up so that the nuts get coated a little bit with the olive oil, but it gets circulated all around the pan. And I've got it on medium high this time since it's already hot. So they'll be done very shortly. We just want to heat them up. And no, the stuff that's in the bottom of the pan is not going to color the taste of the almonds. Let's check on our pork roast. Beautiful. All right. We've got about another 5 minutes, and then I'm going to flip the pork roast. I'll take it out so you can see it, and I'm going to flip it over and just turn it so that we get both sides done evenly. So now we have our green beans ready to go. And if I were serving this now, I would do this now. Well, serving within a few minutes anyway, of the doneness of the pork roast. All right. There we go. I think we'll turn on the little exhaust fan. Okay. Now, since the nuts were salted, of course, I'm not going to add any more salt. What I might add is a little bit, turn it down a second, a little bit of lemon juice. And if you want to soften your lemons up or limes or oranges before you eat them, if you're going to open the orange and peel it, I wouldn't do this. But if you're going to use the juice or the zest of something, that's a good way to do it. Of course, it's been washed first. And let me see. Ooh, that comes up quickly. And since this is an electric range, I'm going to turn it off because they're perfectly toasted now. And what I'm going to do is take my green beans and very carefully plop them in there and start mixing them up. And I'm not turning the range on again. I don't know if you can hear it sizzling, but of course the olive oil and the wetness of the green beans, you can hear it sizzling in the pan. And what you want to do is toss the green beans in this and just let them sit there for a few minutes. Make sure most of them are touching the bottom of the pan. And they'll be ready to serve in another 4 or 5 minutes. There we go. And I'm going to take my lemon. And if you don't have a lemon squeezer, an easy way to make sure that the pits don't get into the dish, filter it through your fingers. Just open up a little bit, enough to get the juice through and not let the pits go. And you'll hear it sizzle. We got lucky and there weren't a lot of pits in there. So now I'm going to take my spoons and mix that up a little more. Oops, hello. Do we have any more questions so far? This is almost like a recipe that I have that we might be able to do another time called blistered green beans. So what this will do with the heat and the toasted almonds is make it look almost like blistered green beans. But what it does is coats it with delicious, flavorful, the olive oil and the salt and a little bit of the thyme that we put in there. I'm going to leave that there and it's off. Remember that. Turn the heat off before you do that. Otherwise you'll have burnt everything. And so, meantime, I'm going to take my marinade. What you can do with the marinade is bring it all together. And this is marinade with the red onion and Dijon mustard and olive oil and vinegar. It's almost like a salad dressing. And what I'm going to do once I open the oven and turn the roast over is take this and put a little bit of this on it as a coating to finish it off on top. So don't throw away the marinade. And we're almost done here. Okay, it's time to turn it over. I'm going to let you see working in the oven. We'll just turn the camera around a little bit so you can see the oven. There we go. Oh, that's pretty. It's beginning to brown even more on top. I think you can see it. We'll get the bottle out of the way. And making sure I have a great big fork that I can keep my hands away from the elements. Oh yeah. And move everything around so that it gets into the liquid. And if you need to at this point, you may add a little bit more wine or even just water to the liquid. So all the vegetables are getting kind of roasted and poached in there. Then I'm going to take my onions and Dijon sauce from the marinade and just coat the roast on top. There we go. So we make sure the flavor sinks in. I don't know if everybody can see that, but maybe I can hold it out a little bit. All right, I'm going to put that back in for another 15 minutes. And I don't know how much time we have, Dr. Jacalyn. How are we doing time-wise? Oh, cranberries are fabulous. Good question. Cranberries are nutritionally very good, and they are also a diuretic, and they are also excellent for keeping your urinary tract clean and clear. Nutritionally, I'd actually have to look it up because I can't keep all that in my head after all these years. But again, they're full of vitamins and minerals. Anything that comes from the earth will have vitamins and minerals and even protein. Even something like broccoli used to be 40% protein. But the cranberries are excellent for your urinary tract and just for keeping your bladder clean as well. I hope that helps. Oh, we have 5 minutes. Oh, food. Well, you can see that the roast is not quite finished, but my green beans are. I'm going to put them in a plate so you can see how pretty they look. They're toasty, roasty, and yummy. I'll use my dish again. So we'll have the pork roast, pork tenderloin, as well as, pardon the back of the pan. Okay, and the best way to serve these is usually with some kind of pretty tongs. And if you don't have pretty tongs, just use whatever tongs you have. But here we have our green beans. They've been sauteed very lightly with the roasted, toasted almonds. And let me tell you how they taste. But hot. Oh, yum. I haven't made this in a while. It's worth making again. Okay, are there any other questions? And what's interesting, oh gosh, thank you. Yes, I'm a jazz fan. And that's our jazz fan, that's actually jazz station that's actually on the television, which I love. And the green beans are really yummy. They've got a little bit of the lemon flavor. It picks up just a little bit of lemon. But what lemon does is help bring out the flavors of the green beans and the nuts as well, and the other herbs that are in there, the thyme. So, sorry. Well, thank you so much. I wish you could be here for the final browning of the tenderloin. Oh, it's beautiful. It's actually it's been on 375. I'm turning it down to 350. And it will brown just as it is. And because we sealed in the juices first with the searing of it, it'll be juicy and tender and absolutely delicious. And you can serve it in a plate with all the vegetables around it, and then serve your sides, your cranberry sauce and your nutty green beans. And you have an absolutely beautiful holiday meal or anytime meal. And nutritionally, it's a good combination of foods, even though you're eating fruits with meats, which some people say not to do, but I think this is fine at least once or twice a year. So thank you very much. It's Ricki Mckenna, certified nutritionist and United Kitchens. Thank you all for being here, and have a healthy, happy new year. See you again in 2022.
Kapayapaan, kapayapaan, kapayapaan.
Diane Floyd Bame's A Song of Peace tells the story of a young lad named Tommy whose fervent wish for peace on earth touches the hearts of his friends and family, spreads to his community, and eventually unites the whole world around making his dream of peace a reality for everyone. Sit down with the children in your life and share Tommy's amazing story of love and hope. Sing your own song of peace and invite the children to join you. Tommy's tale is more than just a story. It's a movement, and everyone's warmly welcome to take part.
Kapayapaan, 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 kapayapaan.
You'll find A Song of Peace, along with many other wonderful learning and enriching opportunities for children of all ages, at DianeFloydBame.com.